The heart condition to which I speak has nothing to do with your physiological makeup. It has everything to do with your spiritual makeup. This passage lays the foundation for understanding how God functions. Here in this familiar passage, Samuel, who is a prophet, Samuel, who is the priest that God has used to assist Saul, the king of Israel, finds himself in a dilemma because Saul has allowed his authority and his position to take him over. He has decided to be an independent thinker and not depend on God any longer. As a matter of fact, Saul finds himself being disobedient to God. In his disobedience, God rejects him as king of Israel and says to his prophet and priest Samuel, I have chosen another to take his place. And I want you to go to the Bethlehemite's house, Jesse, for one of his sons is going to be the new king. And so Samuel, being obedient to God and having some trepidation about going to appoint a new king while Saul is still king of Israel and what Saul would do to him, but finds himself under an obligation to follow what God has said to him to do. So he goes to Jesse's house. And when he gets there, he has Jesse to bring his sons. And Jesse brings 7 sons. The first son that appears before Samuel, Samuel is impressed with him. He has the carriage of a king. He looks grand. He looks stately. He's handsome, and he looks like he ought to be the king. And Samuel is immediately impressed and says, oh, this must be the one. It is in that moment that God tells Samuel, no, that's not the one. He said, and I need you to understand, Samuel, that men look on the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. I need you to know, Samuel, that everybody who looks like a king is not a king. That everybody who looks like I've appointed them, I have not appointed them. And I often appoint the most unlikely candidate. The one that you least expect is the one that I often choose. So Samuel, being obedient, has the other 6 sons to come before him, and each one of them God rejects. God says, no, this is not. And all of them are gone. And finally, when all of them have been dismissed, Samuel turns to Jesse and said, is this all of your sons? And he said, oh, no, I have another son out there. He brings David in from the field. David is covered with the field dirt, and he looks chappered, and he does not look elegant or royal, but simply off the field. Now this text, this marvelous little passage, gives us some insight into how God functions. And that's what all of us as people of faith want to know. The mystery of life is to find out how God functions. What really matters to God? How does God reach God's conclusions? I need you to know this morning that God is not impressed with how you look on the outside. God does not care one bit about how much you paid for that dress. He doesn't care how much you paid for that suit. He doesn't care how fine your house is. He could care little about what kind of car you drive, but God does care about what kind of person you are. When I think about Barack Obama, there are some people who give political analysis and explanation about why Barack Obama is president of the United States. They will take you through the geographic maps and show you all of the voting patterns and how it ended up that he got the vote. But they fail to realize that he was an unlikely candidate. He was a junior senator from Illinois with very little experience, first-term senator, hadn't even completed 1 term. He had very unlikely that he could be president. After all, he was a black man in America. It happened, so we take it to be something. But back there, when he was considering running, he was running against the Clinton dynasty. He was running against all the power in the Democratic Party. All of the wealth was lined up against him. But when God does what God does, You don't have to go around and try to figure out how it happened. You know that it was nobody but the Lord who made a way. His hand, his fingerprints are all over it. You can just be marginally spiritual and know that Barack Obama's president because God made a way out of no way. He knows that. And in your life, I'm sure there are some instances in your life where what your outcome was a result of God's grace. And nobody had to tell you that the Lord made a way for you. Our goal must be to have transformed hearts.